Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. I'm Bobby Sylvester. I co-host the podcast, the Fantasy Football Podcast with Mike Tagliere. You can find it. It's called the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Bobby Fantasy Pro. And today I'm going to be talking start, sit with you. I've got about 15 players lined up. We'll probably touch on about 30. And then at the end, we'll go Q&A. I'll answer as many of your questions as possible and not really go into detail. That way I can answer as many as I possibly can. Before we begin, I want to tell you about a Michael Thomas jersey that we're giving away. It's a signed Saints Michael Thomas jersey. You can go to fantasypros.com/jersey-giveaway, and it takes about 30 seconds to enter. Again, that's fantasypros.com/jersey-giveaway. Okay, let's start at the quarterback position. And this is a week where you've got like 7, 8 guys where you absolutely know you've got to start. Obviously, like Drew Brees, Big Ben, Aaron Rodgers, and such. But then it gets to Blake Bortles, who I've got at number 8. I know a lot of people are going to cringe. I even cringe saying it. But the matter of the fact is this Kansas City pass defense has given up over 30 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. Guys, that's like 70% above the league average. So even Blake Bortles, who you can think he's terrible or whatever, but over his past 10 games, he's been the number one fantasy football quarterback. I think he's an obvious start this week. It's probably available on your waiver wire unless somebody else picked him up with streaming in mind. I would start him over a lot of other guys that almost everybody would start every week. Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson, even Patrick Mahomes face Jacksonville. So I've got Blake Bortles at number 8. Somebody that I'm definitely sitting is Russell Wilson. I just mentioned him. He's going up against the Rams. And typically, I would start Russell Wilson regardless of who he's playing. But right now, he's dealing with a hamstring injury. And because of that, he has not been running the ball as much this year. His ceiling is completely limited by his rushing ability being gone. I don't think Doug Baldwin is 100% right now. And this Rams defense it's extremely good. So I've got Wilson all the way down at QB 18, which is exactly where the expert consensus has him. When I say expert consensus, that means we take from 130 experts around the industry and we see what they think as a whole. And we say, okay, Russell Wilson is ranked this. His average ranking is QB 18. So if you've got him, it's not a good idea to start him. Some people you could stream ahead of him. Andy Dalton face Miami. He's QB 13 for ECR. I've got him at 17, but I like him more than Wilson, obviously. You could stream Alex Smith going up against New Orleans. There's a high over-under in that game. Andrew Luck, I'm not sure if he's available in your leagues, but if you've got him, I would play him over Russell Wilson. I've got him at number 11 tonight against New England. T.Y. Hilton's out, but he's still going to get his. He spreads it around every single week regardless, and he looks better and better every single week. The only other guy that might be available to you is Matthew Stafford. Now, he's probably owned, but I've got him in my top 10. A couple other guys I'm starting. Deshaun Watson is number 9 for me. Jared Goff, I've got him at 13. So I don't want to start him, but the expert consensus has him at 9. If the season ended today, he'd probably finish second in MVP voting. And I go back and watch the film every single week, and it's not a fluke. I mean, this guy's legitimate. He was the most improved player in the NFL last year. He's the most improved player in the NFL again this season. He really has taken a step up to one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Seriously, right there with Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. I'd probably put Patrick Mahomes there now. And then I would put Jared Goff in that conversation. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but he really is that good. Only reason I don't have him in my top 12 is because they're going up against Seattle, who's a much improved. They're a better defense than we expected them to be. A couple other guys I'm not starting. Carson Wentz against Minnesota. Derek Carr, a lot of people are going to be inclined to maybe give him a run out there after last week. He's going up against the Chargers. They got an excellent pass rush. If you're really desperate, I think Marcus Mariota is not a bad start, but I've got him all the way down at QB 20. Okay, let's move on over to the running back position. We want to start with Matt Breida, who's one of my favorite plays this week. I don't know if you've noticed, but Alfred Morris has not been playing as much lately. His snap count is slowly going down. CJ Beathard is the quarterback now, and he throws to running backs more than any other quarterback over the last decade. I don't remember who it was that said that. I wish I could credit them for that statistic, but it's absolutely true. If you remember Beathard last year, he was throwing all the time to Carlos Hyde, who is not really that much of a pass catching back. Breida's getting more and more opportunity. Arizona is one of the worst defenses against running backs. So Matt Breida is in my top 20 running backs. Somebody else that I'm starting is Aaron Jones. Yeah, he's split in the backfield with Jamal Williams. It's not an ideal situation, but you know what? It is an ideal situation going up against Buffalo. Over their last 14 games, there is no worse running defense than the Buffalo Bills. and they would look substantially, they would be number one worst in the NFL. It wasn't for the Vikings only running the ball 6 times against them in week 3. So I'm definitely starting Aaron Jones. I think that Jamal Williams is going to lose out on touches because Aaron Rodgers has come out saying Aaron Jones is really good. We got to get him the ball more. I think that it happens this week against Detroit, who is not, I'm sorry, they're not going up against Buffalo. Aaron Jones is going up against Detroit, who's also in the bottom of the league. So I've got Jones as my RB20. ECR has him at RB24. Kenyon Drake, guys, is somebody that I do not want to start. You can if you have to. Like I've got him at RB40. Sometimes you have to start your RB40. That means your team is bad. Or maybe you've got guys on the bye. So sorry, I'm not trying to call anyone's team bad, but I've got him at RB40 because listen to this. 14 carries, 11 carries, 5 carries, 3 carries last week, guys. Kenyon Drake, I don't know why. He's the better running back than Frank Gore, but Frank Gore is the starter. You don't start the backup running back on Miami against Cincinnati when Vontaze Burfict is coming back. So I've got Drake number 40. I'm not dropping him quite yet, but I'm inclined to sit him on my bench until further notice. I hope you guys do as well. Another running back that I'm sitting is Chris Carson. A lot of people are thinking, well, the last game he played, he had 32 carries. He's coming back. Obviously, he's the bell cow. I don't know if you remember, Mike Davis was really good last week. Rashad Penny is really good. Pete Carroll has come out and said this is the 3-back system. We're going to split the carries. It's stupid, but I think it's probably going to happen. Now, granted, Pete Carroll's been a liar, so maybe Carson does come out and get 30 carries again. I'm not, even if he was if I knew he was getting 20 carries, he would be on the fringe of start worthy against the Rams for me because their defense is so good. So I've got him at 44. The expert consensus actually has him at 48 below me. So nobody thinks that he's startable. If you've got Chris Carson, don't start him. If you've got Mike Davis, don't start him. If you've got Rashad Penny, if you haven't cut him, obviously you're not going to start him. But I wouldn't quite get rid of Penny yet. His weight was up to 240. Now he's down to 226. So he's finally in shape. And this is somebody who is electric. He's got all the ability in the world. Let's go to a couple other running backs before we jump over to wide receiver. Some guys I would start. James White. He's a must start. ECR number 14. Kerryon Johnson. I've got him at RB 16. Adrian Peterson, RB 15. TJ Yeldon is a must start. ECR has him at RB 12 with Leonard Fournette out. Let's see a couple other guys. Devontae Freeman, if he plays, it looks like Tevin Coleman actually might not play. I've got Freeman at 22. Obviously, if he starts, you play him. Joe Mixon, same kind of thing. Gio Bernard, it looks like, is not going to end up playing. Let's see a couple others. Derrick Henry I've got in my top 30 this week because Buffalo, like I mentioned, is just horrible. And Derrick Henry, he's had 18 carries in 2 of the last 3 games. I think they're going to give him the ball a lot against Buffalo, and he's probably going to score a touchdown as well. Royce Freeman is a start for me. They came out and said that he's going to be getting more and more work. He looks awesome. I wish he was getting more work. I mean, I love Phillip Lindsay, but when Freeman gets the ball, you can tell he's going to be one of the best running backs in the NFL. And if they say they're getting him more work, I'm willing to put him in my top 30. Lamar Miller's kind of on the fringe. Alex Collins, Jay Ajayi, none of these 3 are in good situations. Maybe they're your third best running backs, so you can start them, but I've got them 28, 29, 30, just to give you an idea. So if you think, maybe I should bench them, but it feels stupid, it's not really stupid. They're kind of on the fringe. Somebody else that, if you're desperate, you can go pick up Ty Montgomery right now. I've got him at RB 32. The reason why is because basically he's going to be playing in the slot for the Packers. Geronimo Allison's banged up. Devontae Adams is banged up. Andy's going to be being covered by Darius Slay. I just think Ty Montgomery is going to get quite a few targets against Detroit. Austin Eckler, Naheem Hines, Jordan Wilkins with Marlon Mack already ruled out. Those guys are on the fringe as well. And some other guys I'm not starting. Bilal Powell, Isaiah Crowell, Jamal Williams, Duke Johnson. Let's move on over to wide receiver with Julian Edelman. And it might make you a little bit nervous. Like, why would I play this guy? He's coming off a big injury. He's super old. I don't know what to expect right away. I mean, guys, he was suspended for 4 weeks. He's been getting his body in shape. It's not like he needs to be eased back in. He's ready to go. He knows this offense very well. And when he's healthy and good to go, you consider him a wide receiver 2, maybe a high-end wide receiver 3. So what would be the difference this week? I'm playing him tonight. Absolutely no doubt about it. I've got him as my wide receiver 22 against Indianapolis. The industry has him at wide receiver 32, so still a start. I think Julian Edelman is a no-brainer for me. Dede Westbrook is up there as well. I don't know if most people think he's a no-brainer. In fact, ECR has him at 36. But right now, he's leading the Jags in receptions, targets, air yards, receiving yards. He's been their number one so far. I don't know if that's going to continue, but he's definitely going to get enough targets to do work against this dreadful Kansas City Chiefs secondary that I mentioned. So I'm starting D.D. Westbrook. I'm starting Keelan Cole right next to him, 24, 25. Ryan Grant, I am definitely starting as well. I've got him at wide receiver 26 because, like I mentioned, T.Y. Hilton is out tonight. Ryan Grant is their clear-cut number 2. Ebron's going to get some extra work at tight end as well. Nyheim Hines is going to get work, but Ryan Grant's been really good, guys. He hasn't been throwing the ball as much as I had hoped because, like I said, Andrew Luck spreads it around. But tonight, he's the number 1. He's going up against a Patriots defense that Blake Bortles just shredded the other week. I think Grant is a safe start, and he's got a high ceiling. Now on down to the sits, and some of these names are probably going to surprise you, but the matchups just are not good. We'll start with Devin Funchess going up against Janoris Jenkins, who always covers the bigger receiver. That's Devin Funchess. Jenkins is one of the best in the game. I've got Funchess down at 47 this week. I'm fading him for sure. I'm going to guess you can play him in your flex if you're desperate, but hopefully you're not. Same with Quincy Enunwa. He's going to get a bunch of targets, but he plays out of the slot. And while Denver's secondary is not as good, Chris Harris Jr. is still every bit as good as he's ever been. He's the best slot cornerback in the NFL. He's going to be all over Enunwa all game. I think Robbie Anderson actually has a bigger game and would be startable. Well, not startable, more startable than Enunwa. I've got Anderson at wide receiver 49. And by the way, if I'm not answering your questions on certain players, I post my rankings after like 30 minutes after this. I'm going to be posting my rankings on my Twitter at Bobby Fantasy Pro. I always pin it to the top of the page. That way you can find it. If you've got start sit questions, you can look up your exact players and see how I have them ranked, or you can just plug them into my playbook, which is a tool we have on our site. It takes like 5 seconds to import your roster. It gives you all the information you could ever dream of. It's like having a team of experts in your back room, and you just go back there and you ask them, who should I start? And it says, these 80 experts say you should start this guy. These 42 say you should start that guy. And it tells you who the most accurate are, what the percentage is. It changes to your league settings. It is an awesome tool. It's called My Playbook NFL. Somebody else that I'm sitting behind Quincy Enunwa is Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett is going up against the Rams. Marcus Peters is probably going to be on him. And you just don't mess with this Rams defense. Besides the Jags, they're by far the best in the league. I've got him at wide receiver 50. Frankly, I would rather start Devontae Parker ahead of him. And I know that's going to make a lot of people like spit out their gum or spill their coffee or just come curse me out on Twitter, which has been happening a lot this week. But Parker's not a bad play, if he's healthy at least. A couple other guys that I'm definitely playing here. John Brown, I shouldn't have to say this every week, but I get asked that question all the time. Yes, start John Brown. Yes, start Tyler Boyd. Xavier Howard is going to be covering AJ Green. That means Boyd is going to be awesome this week. Let's see here. Amari Cooper, even against Casey Hayward, I think is startable. ECR has him at 26. Geronimo Allison, I already mentioned. Randall Cobb is out. Devontae Adams is going to be covered by Darius Slay. If Allison is healthy, he's a start. He's a top 30 guy. He's got a concussion now, so make sure to watch the injury report. Corey Davis is on the fringe for me because Tre'Davious White is going to be covering him. I love the target share. I love the ability. But Tre'Davious White is one of the top 5 corners in the NFL. And he shut down Stephon Diggs the other week. I think the same thing happens with Davis, but the volume is going to be enough to make him a wide receiver 3, in my opinion. Alshon Jeffrey, same kind of thing, going up against Xavier Rhodes, one of the best in the game. He's on the fringe. Mike Williams is going up against Oakland. He's on the fringe. Taywan Taylor, I already mentioned that Corey Davis is going up against Tre'Davious White. Taywan Taylor is going to be the biggest beneficiary from that. Will Fuller's a start if he plays. Jamison Crowder sneaks into my starts this week against New Orleans. Mohamed Sanu, Kiki QT, those are solid plays as well. Chester Rogers, if you're desperate, you can go pick him up right now. He's going to get a lot of work for Indianapolis with T.Y. Hilton out. A couple guys I'm sitting, Jordy Nelson, Nelson Aguilar, Josh Gordon still. Don't panic on him. In fact, go try to buy him low after this week because I think he has another rough week. But after this, he's going to be a wide receiver 2 rest of the season. Sammy Watkins, even if he plays, don't play him against Jacksonville. Okay, a couple tight ends here. Vance McDonald is not only a must start, he's my top 6 wide receivers this week. I don't know if you've seen the over-under on this game. It is sitting at 58 right now, and Vance McDonald has been very good. The expert consensus has him in their top 12 too, so I'm not, this isn't hyperbole or anything. I'm not just trying to say something for effect. Everyone thinks that he's a start this week. David Njoku I've got as a start as well. Nick Vannett, if you are absolutely desperate, I've got him at tight end 12. I might move him up a little bit higher than that because the Rams are bad against tight ends. Seattle has been targeting their tight ends an absolute ton. Disley's out for the season. Vanette is the better pass catching back anyway. Jimmy Graham had a monster season there last year. Baldwin's not all the way healthy. They're going to be throwing a ton from behind in this game. I think Vanette is a great play if you're absolutely desperate. I would play him even over Austin Hooper, who I've got at 13. A lot of people are saying he's startable this week. He's not bad. CJ Azumwa is startable as well. I've got him at 15 if you're desperate, but Vanette's going to be there. So I would play Vanette over Azumwa. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Antonio Gates, Ricky Seals-Jones. I'm not starting any of these guys. Some people are telling you to. Tyler Kroft is not even the starter for Cincinnati. A lot of people are going to start him anyway. Guys, he's not. He had 7 touchdowns last year, but he's not as good as CJ Azumwa, so he's not playing. Eric Ebron's a must start with Jack Doyle out. George Kittle's still up there. David Njoku's out there because Baltimore's going to be funneling receivers to the middle of the field, which is where Njoku dominates. He's been getting more targets with Baker Mayfield starting now. He's their key red zone threat. So that's the tight end position. Now let's go on over to DST, defense special teams. And so many people have been asking me about the Jags. What do I do with them against Patrick Mahomes? He's got 0 turnovers. Their entire offense has 1 turnover. But here's the thing. The Kansas City Chiefs offensive line is not very good. He was under pressure a lot last week, and he still looked good. But the Jags have the best defensive line in all of football. Maybe the Chargers and the Rams could compete with them, but the Jags get after the quarterback, multiple sacks every single game. They're going to get 4 or 5 this week. I guarantee you there's going to be at least 1 turnover this week. I'm not saying Mahomes is going to get dominated. I'm not saying he's going to be held under 20 points or anything like that. But the Jags are going to get theirs. They're going to get sacks. They're going to force a turnover or 2. You never know if one of those is going to be taken to the house. I've got the Jags still as a start this week in my top 10. And then who was the other defense that I wanted to? Let's start at the top. Tennessee is the best streamer. They're probably already owned. You start them. You start the Panthers against the Giants. You start Baltimore, the Rams, the Chargers, obviously every week. But then a couple more streamers. The Jets are a starter against Denver because Case Keenum has just been terrible. Arizona's a good start against CJ Beathard. I've got them number 8. Cincinnati Bengals against Ryan Tannehill, number 10. The Dolphins offense just looked absolutely horrible last week. And the Eagles are the team that I'm starting. I've got them as my DST. I'm sorry that I'm sitting. I've got them as my DST 16. They're going up against Minnesota. We saw what Kirk Cousins did to a great defense, the Rams, last week. I can't play the Eagles. I also can't play the Vikings against the Eagles. A couple other teams that I'm sitting. Let's see. Nobody's playing the Saints, but if you're still on in the Saints, you can just drop them. The Cowboys, I've got outside my top 12. The 49ers, the Browns. A lot of people are starting these teams. I wouldn't do that. I would start the Texans and the Patriots, though. All right, let's move on over to Q&A, and we've got a lot of time here. The best way to get your Q&A questions answered is if you just keep them short and sweet. Like this one from Peter, John Brown or Amari Cooper. That's very simple, and I can answer that quick. The answer from me this week is John Brown. I've got them like 2 spots apart, though, so it's pretty close. Raphael, pick 2. Ingram, Mixon, Yeldon. If Mixon plays, oh boy. You know what? Even if Mixon plays, I'm starting Ingram and Yeldon. I've got them both in my top 12 this week, and Mixon, if he plays, I've got it 14. It's a good situation to be in. And I'm in a league like that too, where I've got Mixon sitting on my bench, and it feels weird because I know that if he plays, he's going to be a monster, but I've got Ingram as well. So I'm definitely starting Ingram over him. If you can, buy low on Ingram. Maybe the owner knows what he has, but a lot of people don't realize the value Ingram has because they think Kamara's taken over. He's the best running back in the game. And while that may be true, I think Gurley would argue with you about that. While it may be true that Kamara is amazing, he was more efficient last season. The only difference is the volume. When Mark Ingram comes back, that's going to change. Ingram was a top 10 running back almost every single week while Kamara was dominating last year. I think it happens again. Let's see here. TJ Yeldon or James White. I've got Yeldon. The expert consensus has Yeldon 1 spot over James White. So they would agree with me on that one. Taywan Taylor or Josh Gordon? The answer for me is Taywan Taylor. Geronimo, scoring upside. Geronimo or Chris Hogan? Geronimo for upside and for floor. Jeff Swaim, worth running out there over guys like Hooper, Croft, Seferian-Jenkins, RSJ, Ricky Seals-Jones. Let's see, I would play Hooper and then Ricky Seals-Jones and then Seferian-Jenkins and then Croft. Swaim ahead of Croft. I forgot that you mentioned him. So I would go with Hooper. Let's see here. Marshawn Lynch or Carlos Hyde? Let me check my rankings on this one really quick. I've got Marshawn Lynch RB10. The expert consensus has him RB11. Carlos Hyde right now is sitting at RB13 for me and expert consensus. So we would both agree on Marshawn Lynch. Should I trade away Chris Godwin for Eckler? Depends on what you need. I mean, that's a really fair trade. I think Eckler you can start most weeks. I think Godwin you can't start most weeks, but he has more upside. If the Bucs start using him the way he should be utilized, I think Chris Godwin is more talented than Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is going to come crashing down because he's only playing like 55% of snaps. He's getting the third most targets on his team. When Devontae Freeman comes back, that's going to change even more. So um, I would sell high on Calvin Ridley. I know a lot of people think he's breaking out. Yeah, he is breaking out, but not to like a top 15 wide receiver. It's like to a top 30 receiver. Chris Godwin is a more talented guy. So it depends. If he's going to be sitting on your bench, I would rather own Godwin. If you need someone in your flex, Freddie, I would take Austin Eckler. Mark Ingram or Freeman. Even if Freeman plays, it is Ingram. Andrew Luck or Phillip Rivers. It's Rivers by quite a bit for me and for ECR. Non-PPR, should I go with Kerryon Johnson or Chris Carson? It's Kerryon by quite a bit, William. Edelman, start him over Brandon Cooks. No. Don't start him over AJ Green or Antonio Brown either. Luck or Bortles for me this week. It's Blake Bortles. Every time I say it, I can't believe it, but it really is the right call. Leonard Fournette and Lockett, trade them for Sony Michel and Rashad Matthews. I would rather have Fournette and Lockett. Austin Eckler or Chris Carson. It is Eckler for me. Andrew Rodgers or Andrew Rodgers. I'm sorry. Aaron Rodgers or Jared Goff. It's Aaron Rodgers. He's still a top 5 quarterback almost every single week, regardless of matchup. He's been fine, guys. He's actually been better than he was in his first 4 games last season and better in his first 4 games in 2016. He's going to be fine. He's running around scrambling and running for 10 yards. His knee hurts, but it's not limiting him at all. David Njoku or Vance McDonald? This is a really good question. I've got Njoku higher than the expert consensus at tight end 8. They've got him at 11, but I've got Vance McDonald all the way up at 6. So it's McDonald for me. He's a great play. I think you might be able to play him the rest of the season. He might be your long-term answer at tight end. Carlos Hyde or TJ Yeldon? Let's see. I've got them really close. So let me double check, because a lot of this is based on numbers that I run and my model. It's not just, what am I feeling like? I've got Hyde at 13, Yeldon at 14. ECR has them at 12 and 13. So they've got Yeldon ahead of Hyde. It's kind of a toss-up. Robert Woods or Alshon Jeffrey? It is Robert Woods, because Alshon Jeffrey has a nightmare matchup. Let's see, Jamison Crowder or Ryan Grant? That's a great question, because Crowder is probably going to have his first good week of the season, but Ryan Grant is the better play. At least I believe so. ECR still is low on Grant. I don't understand why. Let's see. Do I play Philip Lindsay in my PPR flex or Nyheim Hines? I'm going Philip Lindsay still this week. I know Royce Freeman's supposed to get more touches, but Lindsay's he's just electric. Even if he gets 10, 12 touches, the same as Hines, touch for touch, I think Lindsay is the better player. Unless it's, oh, wait, you said PPR? I'm taking Hines. I'm sorry. I'm changing my mind on that. I was thinking in standard. Kyle Rudolph or Austin Hooper? It's Rudolph for me. I've got him at tight end 11. Hooper at tight end 13 or 14. Scott asks, Aaron Jones or Alex Collins? Let's see here. Again, I've got these guys really close. I've got Jones actually quite a few spots higher than Alex Collins. Alex Collins has fumble troubles, and I think that Buck Allen's going to continue stealing touches from him. Collins just does not look good this year. Kiki QT or Calvin Ridley? This week, you do not bench Calvin Ridley. He's in my top 20 in this game against Pittsburgh. Like I said, the over-under is 58 in this game. QT is like 40th for me. I've got Calvin Ridley 16 or 17 at wide receiver. Considering Bortles over Goff and Wilson, that's the right answer. Blake Bortles is the best of those 3 this week. Emmanuel Sanders or Matt Breida? Oh, man, this is a tough one. Let me check my rankings really quick. I've got Breida as my flex 31. Emmanuel Sanders at 41 this week against the Jets. The Jets have been surprisingly good in their secondary this year. Is Geronimo Allison worth the number 1 claim or hold on to it? I mean, if he's still available in your league, I don't think you need to use your number one claim to get him. That means that there's probably wide receivers similar to him on your waiver wire. And I don't know who you'd be looking at, Trevor, but I wouldn't use your number one claim. I would save that for somebody like Rod Smith or John Kelly or Chase Edmonds, whoever this guy is going to be that takes over for a stud starting running back and is going to get a ton of touches. I would save it for him rather than go on a wide receiver that's just a wide receiver 3 most weeks. What's my outlook on James Conner? Are you holding him? Yes, because I think that everyone is looking at this Le'Veon Bell news and saying, well, it's only a matter of time before James Conner loses his job. I don't think so. I know Le'Veon Bell's coming back, but I don't think it's going to be with the Steelers. I think it's one of these deals where the Steelers weren't getting what they wanted for Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell wants out. He wants to play. But the Steelers just probably went to him and said, we can't trade you unless people realize that we're not desperate. People think the Steelers are desperate because they are desperate. Le'Veon Bell doesn't want to play for them. If Le'Veon Bell's coming back, the Steelers no longer look desperate. They can trade him to the Bucs, or they can trade him to the Texans or the Colts or one of these teams. I'd like to see him go to the Texans, even though he'd be behind a bad offensive line, because the Texans could really use him, and that offense is going to be good with Deshaun Watson. All right, let's see here. Start 2, Jamison Crowder, Ryan Grant, Josh Gordon, Mike Williams. I've got Grant and Mike Williams this week, Jonathan. Drop Russell Wilson for Blake Bortles, or is Chris Carson droppable? Man, this is a tough one. I think Russell Wilson's a streamer. It sucks that you drafted him in probably the 6th or 7th round, maybe even the 5th. But at this point, his legs are not the same as they used to be. So he's a streamer. You drop him for another streamer. Maybe next week you pick him back up as a streamer. Chances are he's not going to be there, but you know what? Someone's going to be there who's probably a better streamer than him next week. So I would drop Wilson for Bortles this week and then plan on dropping Bortles the following week for another streamer. I would not quite drop Chris Carson yet. James White. Oh, I thought it was I thought it was James White or this guy, but it just said James White, James White, James White. Let's see here. Vanilla Wilt says that I'm going down this week because we are playing in the listener league. And I hate to break it to you, Vanilla Wilt, but I'm pretty sure I've led the league in scoring each of the past 3 weeks. You're just screwed, man. You might as well quit. All right. Lizard Man, waiver wire, Dede Westbrook or Mohamed Sanu, Taywan Taylor this week only. Dede Westbrook's the best streamer out of those 3. All 3 are good streamers, but it's Dede. Gronk or Vance McDonald? This is a very good question because Gronk says he's playing, but we all know what that means. He's probably going to go out there and play a couple snaps and maybe get targeted once or twice, and they just want the team to panic and game plan for them. Even still, I don't think you can leave him on your bench because if he does play the whole game, and the expert consensus agrees with me, they've got him at tight end 4. That's where I've got him. If I knew he was going to play, I'd put him at tight end 1, no doubt about it. But I've got him at 4 just in case. McDonald, I've got at 6. So it depends. Like if you're a heavy favorite, start McDonald because he's safer. If it's expected to be tied, I think the median score for a Gronk game is higher than the median score for a Vance McDonald game, if that makes sense. All right, let's see. Jordan Reed or Jimmy Graham. I've got Reed as my tight end 1 this week. So Jordan Reed it is. Nyheim Hines tonight or Doug Baldwin. This is a really good one. Full PPR. Man. Let me go to the rankings on this one too, because I've got these 2 really close. I'm sure of it. I'm going with Nyheim Hines by 2 spots. That's a close one. All right, full PPR. Joe Mixon, Matt Breida, Sony Michel. It is Joe Mixon. If he plays, he's the starter with Breida right behind him. I'm sorry. I've got Sony Michel actually higher than Breida. So Michel would be number 2, but if Mixon plays, he's number 1 in that one, Joe. Okay, let's see. Cam Newton or Jared Goff? It's Newton for me. Everyone has him in the top 5, including myself. PPR, John Brown, Mark Ingram, or James White. Mark Ingram all the way, baby. I know James White is like this great receiving running back. Mark Ingram had a lot more receptions than him last year. He was a beast out of the backfield catching the ball, and you know he's going to be good running the ball as well. Let me take maybe 4 or 5 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's see. Derrick Henry or Sony Michel this week? Sony Michel. Start Kittle or Emmanuel Sanders. I'm assuming that's Emmanuel Sanders in his flex. Emmanuel Sanders is who I would start there. Lamar Miller or Kittle in the flex. Lamar Miller. Let's see, 2 more here. Sony Michel or Chris Thompson PPR. It's still Sony for me, even though Thompson's a beast in PPR. Last one here, Mark Ingram or Devontae Freeman. It is Mark Ingram for me. Guys, that's all for today's show. Thank you for watching. It's a blast that I get to do this job. And so thank you for the support. If you have any more questions, remember you can check out my rankings on my Twitter at Bobby Fantasy Pro. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. That way, when we do these, you can set a reminder for yourself so you don't miss any of them. Don't forget to enter the Michael Thomas signed jersey giveaway by going to fantasypros.com/jersey-giveaway. Again, that's fantasypros.com/jersey-giveaway. Thanks for watching and enjoy your football.